150 years ago, women had a few rights. They were viewed as possessions by society. They were excluded from universities and professional schools. They couldn't vote or run for political office. The middle-class women stayed at home to take care of their husband and children. Outside of nursing and teaching, there were a few career opportunities for them. Towards the 19th century, however, attitudes toward women slowly began to change. Small groups from Canada, the US, and Europe joined to fight to obtain suffrage, the right to vote. They were known as suffragettes. They were regarded as radicals or extremists. Everyone, including women, disapproved of them because they challenged old laws and customs. In 1876, Dr. Emily Stowe created the first suffrage organization in Canada, called the Toronto Women's Liberty Club. Feminists believed that women should have the same right as men. They worked hard to convince Canadians that women should have the right to vote. In 1912, Nellie McClung, a teacher and author, helped establish the Winnipeg Political Equality League. This was the most effective suffrage organization in Canada. When the League appealed to the Manitoba Premier to give women the right to vote, they replied saying nice women didn't want to vote. The League responded by staging a mock parliament at a Winnipeg theatre. In 1916, Manitoba became the first province to give women the right to vote. Many other Western provinces quickly followed their example. World War I was the turning point for women. While the men fought in Europe, Canadian women took up jobs on farms and in factories. The efforts the women made helped win the war and earned women respect. By the end of the war, Canadian women, except for Native women, had won the right to vote. When World War I ended, Canadian men came home and reclaimed their jobs, and because of this, most Canadian women returned to their traditional role of staying at home. In 1921, the federal government passed a regulation preventing married women from holding jobs in the government unless they had no other income. Female civil servants had to quit their jobs when they married. The only exception to this was that if no man was available to fill the job, a married woman could be hired. Many women believed that they were only given rights and freedoms when their country needed them. That same year, Agnes MacPhail became the first woman to be elected to the House of Commons. She believed in women's rights and worked hard to improve them. However, many women did not rush into politics because they were educated to believe that politics was a man's occupation. In 1927, 5 Alberta feminists, known as the Famous Five, asked Parliament to define the term persons as it was used in the BNA Act, which was Canada's first constitution. They wanted to know if persons who qualified for appointment to the Senate included women. No woman was appointed to the Senate until this time. In 1928, the Supreme Court of Canada decided that the word person meant male persons only. Women were not legal persons and could not hold any appointed office. Canadian laws, as interpreted, was actually preventing women from achieving equality. This case became known as the Persons Case, because 5 determined women appealed this decision to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in Britain, who in 1929 overruled the Supreme Court of Canada's decision and said that women were indeed legal persons and could be qualified for appointment to the Senate. Corrine Wilson became the first woman to be appointed to the Senate in 1930. Much of this was due to the Famous Five: Nellie McClung, Emily Murphy, Irene Paulby, Henrietta Edwards, and Louise McKinney. During World War II, 45,000 Canadian women joined the army as nurses, drivers, firefighters, and radio technicians, but they were still paid 20% less than men who held the same rank. Back home, more than 1 million women entered the workforce and encountered the same old attitudes as the war drew to a close. A 1944 Gallup opinion poll showed that 68% of Canadian women and 75% of men believed that returning soldiers should be hired over women. In 1982, protection of women's rights was set forth in Section 28 of the Charter, and this guaranteed rights and freedoms equally to male and female persons. In 1999, the federal government agreed to pay $3.5 billion to 230,000 current and retired workers after a civil servants union complained that women weren't being paid the same as men in 1983. In 1992, a 2-year study was done that showed that women had been paid $2 to $5 an hour less than men for doing work of equal value at Bell Canada. The union wanted $150 million in pay equity for its members, but Bell Canada was not willing to give it up. This case is still being fought today. Women were first allowed to work in combat jobs in infantry, artillery, and armored divisions in 1987, but this was not easily achieved. The Canadian military is an example of one government organization that has not accepted women easily. Women make up only 11.4% of Canada's armed forces. Only 3.5% of female officers and 1.4% of female non-commissioned soldiers are in combat positions. Women's movements in Canada are still working to resolve a number of equality issues. One organization committed to legal reform is LEAF, Legal Foundation and Action Fund. They describe itself as a national and non-profit organization that works to promote equality for women and girls in Canada. They also intervene in legal cases where women's rights are an issue, such as employment, pay equity, sexual harassment, and discrimination against pregnant women. A poll done in 2010, the Pew poll, showed that 72% of both women and men between the ages of 18 and 29 agreed that marriage works best when both the husband and wife work. There are many income gaps and literacy gaps between men and women today. Poverty causes pain to both men and women, but women are the ones who suffer the most from the lack of income. There are many countries around the world in which women earn less than 50% of men's incomes. Yemen with 30%, Cape Verde with 36%, and Eritrea with 39% are the worst of all these countries. Women's literacy rate is less than 50% of men's in many countries. Chad and Afghanistan are less than 30%, even though it is 2013 and the world seems to be and should be more advanced. Afghanistan, Iran, Guatemala, and Sudan are some of the few countries in which women are raped and forced into prostitution daily. Life for women has improved over the years, but even though it is 2013, women are still not considered as equal as men almost everywhere around the world. There isn't one country in the world where women can feel completely safe. Even in wealthy countries, there are places where women are unprotected and under attack. There's a huge range of barriers that women face to getting education and many other things. Women still feel violence, isolation, and discrimination. Some countries have so much violence that life becomes unbearable for them. Lack of control over their own destinies restricts women from achieving equality. Women have many rights and freedoms that they never would have imagined to receive, and many things have gotten easier, but there's still a long path ahead until women receive full equality.